Hey guys, this is Luke MC Candles coming at you with another deck tech for our versus videos. Today we will be playing the Yuki Ichikawa Jund Walkers deck from the Pro Tour Top 8. This deck definitely caught my attention. As everybody knows, I enjoy playing exactly this style of deck as often as possible. We'll go through the cards that are the usual suspects in these decks. So, as usual, we'll play 4 Elvish Mystics, 4 Sylvan Caryatids, 4 Corsair Crucifix, 4 Xenagos the Reveler, and then rather than just playing Mizzy and then throwing around some Stormbreath Dragons and Polukranos's, this deck actually replaces those with cards like Thoughtseize, a plethora of situational removal spells like Golgari Charm, Abrupt Decay, Putrefy, and Ultimate Price. This gives you good coverage against a lot of the decks in the format so that you don't really lose to anything for free. A lot of the times against like the mono black decks, you don't have a turn 2 removal spell for Packrat, and then even if you do, you then can't beat the follow-up turn 4 Desecration Demon. This deck does not struggle against those strategies anywhere near as much as it used to, and I'm a massive fan of the changes. Also, changing our late game threats like Stormbreath Dragon, this deck plays 4 Nissa Worldwaker. It's a new card from M15 and is a gigantic threat that almost every deck in the format struggles to beat. Once you resolve a Nissa, you usually find the game ends 2 to 3 turns later, and it's usually because you have a bunch of lands that are now killing your opponent. Uh, we also play some support planeswalkers in 2 copies of Chandra Pyromaster and 1 copy of Vraska. Vraska's really good at beating cards like Underworld Connections, other big creatures, or opposing planeswalkers. And Chandra is a really good card advantage engine, as well as it is a good way to kill Lifebane Zombie, which is one of the most problematic creatures, not because it takes creatures out of your hand, but because it pressures your planeswalkers and you don't have any ways to block it. The land base is a little bit more temple heavy than the usual Jund Monsters list, um, but because of the way that we're not trying to just power out a Stormbreath Dragon and win on turn 5, it's actually a lot better. You get to smooth out your draws a lot more frequently, and there's not as many issues with color screw. We play the Singleton Rakdos return main. That's really, really good against the control decks and does still shine against the mono black decks. That's about it for the main. I mean, Jund has been Jund for however many years now. Replace any card with any other card from Jund strategies from the past, and it still does basically the same thing. Moving on to the sideboard, I have changed 1 card in this sideboard in comparison to the Pro Tour list. I've cut the 4th Mistcutter Hydra for a Slaughter Games. I've found that the mono-blue matchup for this deck in particular is not as bad as it usually is. You play a lot of really solid removal spells that aren't dead against cards like Master of Waves, and with stuff like Ultimate Price and Putrefy, you can answer most of the things they're doing, and then they struggle just as much as most decks to beat a Nissa Worldwaker that's resolved. This card is still a good card against control, but Slaughter Games is really backbreaking if you power out an early one for a Sphinx's Rev, or if you're ahead on board, you might just do it for a Supreme Verdict and stop them being able to answer it. Uh, Other than that, we're playing 2 more copies of Thoughtseize so that we can board up to the full 4. We've got a 2nd copy of Rakdos Return, a couple more Doomblades, so that if we're playing against, say, a Jund strategy or an aggro deck, we have more 2-mana instant speed removal that is, against those decks, almost with no prerequisite. It also kills Mutavault, which is really important. We've got 2 Magma Sprays against any of the aggro decks, including Burn. Magma Spray is a really, really good 1-mana spell. Being able to exile a Chandra's Phoenix or a Voice of Resurgence is really important. I mean, that's basically it. Scavenging Ooze does the same thing it's always done. You bring it in against the matchups where a lot of creatures are going to die, and it turns into a 6/6 that threatens to kill them in 2 swings very, very quickly. Golgari Charm for Supreme Verdict decks to an extent, against the Esper ones especially because they also play removal spells. Maybe if you were playing against a deck that was going to play more enchantments, like maybe if someone's playing a Constellation strategy, or if you are playing against an outdated control deck still playing Detention Spheres, Golgari Charm's still really good. But it is the card I am looking at the moment as maybe another potential cut. I don't think you need 2. Other than that, I'm really excited to keep jamming with this deck. I've been loving playing it so far, and I guess we'll just have to see how it goes.